Today we're going to talk about something that I've actually wanted to talk about for a long time on Tutorial Tuesday. We're going to talk about black and white photography. This can be a little bit of a contentious subject, so we're going to talk about why you might want to shoot in black and white, what you get out of it, and we're going to go bold. We're going to talk about how shooting in black and white might make you a better photographer. Let's roll the new intro. It's Tutorial Tuesday. Welcome back to Tutorial Tuesday, where each and every Tuesday we bring you a brand new, fresh photography tutorial. I haven't said that one for a while, so I wanted to get a good one in, and I feel like I did. So let's get into it. Let's talk about black and white photography. This is a bit of a contentious subject, like I said in the intro, because some people love it, some people hate it, and some people try and use it just to fix bad light or bad colors, or to try and make a photo interesting when it maybe wasn't interesting to begin with. So we're going to talk about why you might want to shoot in black and white, what you get out of it, and how it can make you a better photographer in certain situations. Now, obviously, black and white is an interesting thing because it came about from a lack of technology. You know, everything had to be in black and white. There just wasn't the technology to capture the color. And obviously, those days are long gone. So in theory, there's no reason to shoot in black and white from a technological standpoint. However, a lot of photographers love shooting in black and white. And actually, I did resist it for a while, especially when I started with photography. I was all about color. I was all about trying different colorings and then color grading in Lightroom and Capture One and stuff like that. I love doing that. But actually, as time has gone on, I have definitely lent more towards really quite enjoying black and white. Not for everything, not all the time, but sparingly using it for different things because I think it works in a lot of different situations and I think it can add a lot to your photo. So let's get into it. First of all, if you're going to shoot black and white, the first thing you're going to have is a lack of color. Now that might sound super obvious, but the point is it means that color is no longer a distracting feature of your photo, whether it be a bright color in the background, whether it be colors maybe not gelling together or not mixing well, whether it be different light sources having different color temperatures, and it all kind of gets a bit weird. Shooting in black and white gets rid of all of that, which is a massive help. It can be hugely beneficial to your photo to be able to kind of get rid of all of that kind of color noise that you don't necessarily want to deal with. And the other thing that that does for you is it allows you to focus more on the actual composition, the subject of the photo. You can focus on what is making the photo interesting, what is making it good in the first place. You're no longer distracted by those colors. And that can be a really, really useful technique because we've all done it. We've all gone and taken photos of beautiful flowers and sunset and stuff like that. And look at those golden tones in the sky. And I mean, I've done it a million times. But actually not being able to do that, actually having to work harder to find an interesting subject, an interesting source of light, which I'll come into in a minute. Having it in black and white forces you to work for the photo, and it really, really focuses what you're actually thinking about, composition and all that kind of stuff, which can make you a better photographer. The second thing I want to talk about, which leads on perfectly from that, is that it allows you to see light in a different way. You're no longer worried about the color tones. And like I said before, if you've got multiple sources of light with different color temperatures, it doesn't matter anymore. Now you're looking at light in an interesting way. And now you're looking at contrast in a slightly different way, because we've all seen beautiful black and white images, really high contrast, really punchy. I'm a big fan of that, to be honest. I love that kind of look. Low contrast can obviously work as well. Low contrast, you're gonna have more details in the shot, but high contrast does hide some of those details, but it adds a huge amount of drama to the shot. And light is a big, big part of that. Suddenly a sun ray coming down or hitting a building in a certain way or hitting a person, those harsh shadows that you might have been avoiding in the midday sun, that kind of thing, suddenly they can look great in black and white. That stuff can look fantastic, that high contrast look. And as I mentioned before, the third thing I want to talk about is how much drama this can add to your photo. A high contrast black and white photo really helps to tell a certain kind of story. It adds a huge amount of drama to the whole scene, especially if you boost up that clarity in Lightroom. Things can look really, really dramatic. The way light falls, the way the highlights and the shadows bounce off each other can look fantastic in black and white, and you're no longer worrying about colors or crushing the blacks down and getting weird coloring on skin tones, for example. Now in black and white, that doesn't matter. This can really help to draw the viewer in. You know, a high contrast portrait photo with harsh shadows, very dramatic, tells an interesting story. And then a low contrast, kind of flatter portrait can actually help with the kind of beautification of the photo. If you're going for a nice beautiful photo, maybe in a meadow, something like that, a nice portrait like that, maybe a lower contrast will work really well for that. But it does make you see light in a different way to how you would probably see it if you were working with color. I also think negative space works a lot better in black and white than it does in color. Now that's not always true. There's definitely situations in color where it works really well, but with black and white, suddenly that big expanse of sky can look very almost ominous. You know, it can look, a blue sky looks very dark and interesting with then punchy white clouds just sprinkled across that really big dark sky. You know, negative space around a small person can look very, very interesting in black and white, again, because you're not having to worry about the color, about whether it's a bland, not interesting color that's filling that negative space and maybe you want to punch up that color. You don't have to worry about any of that. You don't have to worry about any of that. Negative space can work really well in black and white, and it makes you think about it in a different way. I love using negative space in black and white, whereas I hate using negative space when it comes to color. And I think a big part of why a lot of this stuff works with black and white, whereas maybe it doesn't work so well with color, is because you are, in a way, you're creatively limited. You know, you're no longer able to rely on colors to make the photo interesting, or for splashes of golden tones from a sunset to kind of save your landscape photo, to make your landscape photo work. Suddenly, it comes down to literally what you can photograph, how you can photograph the scene, the portrait, the street photo, whatever it is. It comes down to your subject, your lighting, you know, what's interesting in the photo. And it suddenly is all about that and not about the color at all. You have to work harder, like I said at the beginning. You have to find interesting things. You can't just allow the photo to rest on its colors. And something that I find interesting is sometimes, especially with new photographers, they'll often pump up the saturation a little bit. And part of that is because people will say, oh wow, I love the colors in your photo, when they're looking at a super colorful photo. And they don't necessarily mean, you know, that's a great photo. It's just that there are super vivid colors there that really stand out. And initially that is very attention grabbing, but it doesn't necessarily make it a great photo. With black and white, you don't have any of that. You're relying on your own composition. You're relying on your own eye for what you've seen, what you've captured. And I feel like it matters more. And it can be ultimately a more rewarding process. And at least I think it can make you a better photographer, because if you can take those skills that you've been using then in black and white and apply them to color photography, well, then you're away. Now, I do just want to touch on my workflow of how I do black and white images, because I actually think my workflow is a great example of how maybe not to do it. So I tend to shoot in RAW. I mean, I shoot in RAW pretty much all the time. Part of that is because I'm a little bit obsessed and I hate the idea of not having all of that available data and information to play around with when I'm editing photos. I edit every photo. I never really shoot straight out of camera. So I love to shoot in RAW, so I have all of that information available. And what that means is I'm shooting in color and then making it black and white in Lightroom or Capture One or Photoshop or wherever it is that I'm doing that. And that's maybe not the best way. It's not bad, but it means that when you're photographing the scene, you're photographing in color and then deciding later whether or not you should pop it into black and white. And that is the part that's maybe not ideal. It would be great to actually shoot with black and white in mind when you're taking the photograph, whether or not you are shooting RAW and it's in color, but you're thinking about black and white, or whether you actually put it into black and white in the camera, you know, whether that's a picture profile, a creative style, whatever it might be. If you can put it in black and white in the camera, you're going to actually see the world a little bit differently while you're taking photos. And that can really help with taking good black and white photos, rather than taking color photos and then popping them into black and white later. And that can sometimes be, if they didn't work, you pop them in black and white, which is not necessarily ideal. So let me know down in the comments, are there any other things you love to get out of a black and white photo? What is your workflow for black and white? Do you shoot in RAW and then make it black and white? Do you shoot in black and white to begin with? Do you shoot black and white film? That'd be super interesting. I'd love to hear about that. So pop it all down in the comments. Any questions, of course, pop them down there as well. Full list of kit in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I will always really appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching. Wait, no, that's not the ending. I'll see you in the next video. There we go. And as always, thanks for watching.